All right, so I always have my hands in about 10 different things, and so Kid CEO School is something that really came to me hard last year, that one of the solutions to the dilemma of, well, I can't homeschool, and I don't want my kid stuck in public school. What do? I can't afford private school. Okay, it came to me. All of my kids were entrepreneurs growing up, and children from age kindergarten on up, if you coach them, they can earn enough money to pay their own school tuition every year, like $7,000. Now that's a game changer. That means every family can afford to send their children to private school, no matter if they have 40 children or 4, right? So that was the concept. Whenever I tell parents about this, they're kind of like, my kid, I don't know, they can't even make their bed. And that's what I'm telling you, is the reason they can't make their bed is because they have never had a project that they were responsible for, okay? Being a kid CEO really can help a child mature quickly. One of the advantages of it, and it's on that huge list, is that it ends the perpetual adolescence that we're seeing in this generation. If you think about it, until 2 generations ago, every child helped their family or family business in substantial ways. My grandmother remembers being 5 years old and thinning the beets, and she was so tired. She said, I fell asleep in the gap between the 2 rows of beets. That was how tired she was at 5 years old, because she was working. Okay. So it helps kids become adults and helps them become responsible. So youth have always worked in past generations. It's what made our grandparents the greatest generation. Now the interesting thing is, you think about that greatest generation, it wasn't like a stress-free existence. They survived the Depression and World War II. Okay, so I know that sometimes when we talk about trauma and anxiety and stress and the high stakes testing, some people will say, testing, come on. If they can't deal with testing, I mean, what's wrong with your kid, all right? But what I'm saying is, if one of the ways, and this is an answer to one of the questions, how do we develop resilience in children, okay, so they can handle stuff like high stakes testing and peer pressure and all that, is you let them have small, stressful experiences growing up with lots of social support. Then they become resilient, okay? They're not crushed by it. And this is what has always happened in the past. Kids worked, and they worked for a reason. And it gave them, as Dr. Jensen was talking about, meaning in their life. It's more than just leveling up on a video game, okay? This is the real stuff. Okay, so think about this. What do these people have in common? And you're going to go, why are they all on the same page? Okay, Ben Franklin, George Washington. Who? Who's this? Neil Maxwell. Who's that? Warren Buffett. Who's that? Damon John. And Richard Branson. What do they all have in common, people? Kid CEOs. They all started businesses as youth or children, every one of them, okay? And it was formative to their characters. Okay, here's what the character traits are. And these are real world character traits that they develop in vivo, all right? So all of those are pretty self-explanatory, except what the last one, faith in God. Okay, now I'm not saying Richard Branson has faith in God, but what I'm saying is, one of the reasons that socialist countries become atheist is because everything comes from the government. And when you have an entrepreneurial point of view, if you have a business, you have the opportunity to rely not on government, but on God. I know in my practice, if I need more clients, I know this sounds really mechanical, but I pay my tithing. You know, I'm like, I pay in advance. I'm like, Heavenly Father, I need a couple of clients. Here. Isn't that terrible? But that's faith. And then it comes through. And so entrepreneurship can be a vehicle for faith in God, where you say, you live right, you work hard, you pray as if everything depends on God, you work as if everything depends on yourself. That's Brigham Young, right? And you just see if you're not successful. Okay. Oops, wrong one. Okay, here's a really cool thing. Utah recently passed the lemonade stand laws. How many people are familiar with that? Oh, great. This is a very educated group. Right. So it opens the door. Now, if I had a magic wand, I would do a stealth campaign from coast to coast to have every state pass the lemonade stand laws before the liberals knew what was happening. It was a bipartisan thing, but they don't understand. This is one of the most powerful ways to make conservatives out of children. We say it makes snow shovels out of snowflakes, right? Okay, what about child labor laws? Okay, basically, they came into being to make sure kids got an education instead of laboring in the mines. But federal child labor laws allows children to work any hours in a business wholly owned by parents. So you're off the hook unless you're having your child excavate for homes or work on roofs or something, dangerous. So you're in the clear there, okay? That's always a question. Okay, so here's my family story. That's my family. There's a few in-laws and grandkids thrown in. I didn't have that many kids, but yeah. And that's what it looks like out of the back of my house. Isn't that amazing? It's not a backdrop at Olin Mills. Okay. So 7 kids, all have been kid CEOs. Now the first 4 were homeschooled a lot more than the last 3, so they did a lot more enterprises, okay? Also, I make a distinction between being an entrepreneur and a kid CEO. Entrepreneur is where you figure out a new way to do something. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to be successful in business. You can do something that's already been done, but you're doing it locally or something like that. Okay, so I call it enterprising kids instead of entrepreneurial kids. Not every kid is an entrepreneur, but every kid can be an enterprising person. Okay. Okay, my oldest, Adrian, she bred golden retriever puppies and gave piano lessons, and that took her through college at BYU. Yes, she did get some Orca scholarships, but she graduated BYU in political science. With no debt. Now, I can just tell you this, that the joke about political science majors, what's the difference between a political science major and a large pizza? A large pizza can feed a family of 4. So, but she still teaches piano and makes a significant contribution to her family. And that's just the lowest level of entrepreneurship, right? Okay, so this is my son, Rob. So he's a violinist. He's an amazing violinist. This is how he makes his living now. Okay, so he's a father of 3 children. He's a YouTube violinist. You can look him up. He has almost 700,000 followers. Between gigs and YouTube revenue, he will make between $10,000 and $20,000 a month. This is how he makes his money. Okay. And I just had to be right behind him. I'm like, get rid of the stupid cold call sales software job. You have a talent. You can do this. He really did rely on mom's faith in him. And okay, yeah, a little bit of money, a little bit of capital up front. But it made the difference. And so he's a full entrepreneur now. And he's got like 2-3 different, things he's doing. But that's a great story. I mean, who makes money nowadays with playing violin? Right? Who would have thought? But that's the genius of it being and having an enterprising spirit. Because if you don't have an enterprising spirit, your mindset is, nah, can't be done. Enterprising spirit goes, well, it's not been done yet, but there's got to be a way. And that mindset of, you know what? I think you could figure it out. Like Dr. Jensen, I think you could figure that out. Instead of, nah, can't be done, give up. That is such an important piece of family culture to instill in your kids. I try with my children to say no as little as possible. okay? I try to say yes as much as possible. Personally, I think God very seldom says no to us in our prayers. I think what he says is, I've got something better. So that's Rob. So this is Amelia. She is a horsewoman. She's a very, very accomplished artist. She went to art school on both coasts for 3 years. The one in the middle was the very first assignment she did in New York. It took her 5 months, 6 hours a day in a room totally black with one light source. All she had was an eraser and a pencil. That's what that is, okay? And it's a very classic way of drawing like the great masters, tons of focus. And then she's a gallery artist, and she's been featured in magazines. And then what she's done, when she's a teenager, she and her little sister were very much into horses, and I supported it. Okay, we couldn't afford lessons, so I would paint pictures, portraits of the horses of the teacher in order to afford the lessons. So we start small, right? Start very small, this entrepreneurial mindset. It's like we don't have cash, but we have a little talent. We could do paintings for you. See that idea, that whole culture? They saw mom do that. Then they got very good at riding horses, and then I'll have to check and see, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture used to have a program, and they might still, where they give out loans of up to $5,000 for entrepreneurial kids in rural areas to start any kind of agricultural business. You can be up to 21 years old, and the interest rate is really minimal, but that is working capital. They're trying to encourage kids to start agricultural businesses. So my 2 girls did it. One was 12 and one was 14. She was 14 when she did that. And they took the money and they built an arena in our yard with the money, and they also bought unbroke ponies, and they break the ponies and they sell them, buy more horses, break the ponies, sell them, and it became it built up. At one point we had 10 thoroughbred horses on our property that they were breaking and training, and that's how she paid for art school. She sold that horse, and that was 1 year of art school. But talk about faith. Okay, here's the story. So she calls me up from Manhattan. I must be a bad parent. She goes, Mom, I have no money. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, no, Mom, can I just tell you what I had for lunch today? And I said, what'd you have? And she said, well, I had all I had was the heels of a loaf of bread. That's all I had. And then I was all out of peanut butter, but I had a little bit of jam. So I took one heel and I wiped the inside of the jar and slapped it together. Mom, that's what I ate for lunch today. And I said, well, your horse just has to sell. I said, I'll tell you what, you mark my words. You write down in your journal that you've lived worthy and you need God's help. He will have that horse sell for you. And I said, you mark it. And so that's how we exercise faith, right? And darn it, if that horse didn't sell in 3 days for full price, it was about $10,000. And so she was able to write down, Mom told me, and it worked. Yes, there you go. Family history story for generations, right? And so it's wonderful things like that can happen. Also, when she started wanting to teach her kids how to read, she's got two little homeschoolers. She couldn't find a good program. And she goes, Mom, what program did you use? You taught all 70 of your kids to read before kindergarten. I can't find anything. If I have to look at the Bob books again. Anyone familiar with those? Good. They're terrible. Okay. She goes, if I have to look at those again, I'm going to kill myself. So she actually took the program, broke it up, made her own little things, and she's made a set. This is her first series of 10 phonics readers, and what they are is they're a little lesson at the beginning, and then beautiful stories, beautifully illustrated stories that use those little words, and it takes you right through the program. And she sold them all over the world in the last year and a half, and she's made about $40,000, and one of the top 5 publishers in New York reached out to her and said, we'd like to publish those books. Can we do that? And she's in the process right now of turning them down. because what she's doing is going to be better than their deal. But that's an entrepreneur, but I had to help her. She's like, Mom, what program did you use? Mom, I need ideas for things. And then after a little while, boom, she's off and going. She doesn't need Mom anymore. It's great. We want to work ourselves out of a job, right, parents? Okay, that's Amelia. This is Allison. So she was the little sister that did horses. She would teach horse lessons, and they would have horse camps twice a year in the summer. And at each horse camp, they'd make $2,000 or $3,000. And so I'm not talking about $50,000, right? I'm talking about enough to get your kid into private school. See, that's the game changer, all right? And then she would sell these little ponyonis. They were little sculptures that she'd make out of Sculpey, and she'd go to horse shows and sell out, and then she sold them online. She'd send them all over the world. They were custom little, send me a photo of your horse and I will do a ponyoni. Crazy, but she made money that way. So now she actually is riding horses professionally in Florida. She met her husband, who's German. He's a German driving coach. Met him in Europe when she was at the World Equestrian Games. They're happily married. And so this is a horse that she and he have invested in. This is their about 7th horse they've bought. They buy him for about $5,000 from the Amish and sell him for $20,000 to $30,000 after they trained. So they are entrepreneurs. That's what they do, okay? So these are my twin boys. I didn't homeschool them quite as much. When you have twins, everything's impossible, right? So, but Russell is a cadet at West Point Military Academy, and he bought a pony, sold it, made a profit, was very happy with that. They were more into sports though. And then Ryan, he also bought a horse and did that, but he also started he called it Pave Savers. It was a business where his dad would help him go get a big container of asphalt sealant, put it in the back of a truck, and just go door to door to people with asphalt driveways and say, hey, I can seal the cracks in your asphalt for 1/10 of the going rate. And he did it, and so he'd make like $400 for 4 hours of work, $1,000 for 7 hours of work. I mean, it was amazing, and it was great. And so that helped pay for his mission and stuff. This is my latest. She's my little caboose. She is a fabulous pianist who may end up giving piano lessons. But right now she owns and rides 5 horses. And she's thinking of doing camp. She's not quite old enough yet. And she started a concept called pet pageants, which I think is an awesome idea. Now, she hasn't made it actually work yet. But the idea is to do online pageants with people entering their pets with videos and photos, and it costs them $10 to enter, and then she offers trophies and prizes. And I'm like, dang, that's a good idea. And then her sister, who's the artist, made the logo, which I thought was adorable. So that is it. You can go to the website for more information. Now, the deal is, I do not necessarily want to be the kid CEO queen of all time. I'm hoping someone else will actually do this. And so I'm hoping that Adam Hailstone will do that. And I talked to him, I'm like, will you please do an online thing in the Williamsburg thing? But I want to tell you, it's real. It really can work to change your kids' lives and give them educational opportunities that you might not have thought they had. How are we doing on time? I got 2 minutes. 6 minutes? Oh, whoa, okay, I won't take that long. All right, if you look at the list of like how to do this, it's the second page. Just some basic things. There's some pieces here I want you to notice about though. Under number 3, it says acknowledge diligent work more than talent, brains, or looks. Now this is one of the differences between American culture and Asian culture. Okay, American culture says, oh, you're so talented. Okay, Asian culture goes, no, you worked hard. And that's going to get you way farther. So we want you to, and parents and grandparents, can you stop telling your children how smart they are, please? It really creates anxiety. Why? Well, if I'm smart, that means I'm supposed to be successful at things. So what happens when you fail? What does that mean? Right? But if you say, you're smart enough to do what you put your mind to. The main thing is, how hard are you working? And you can always work harder. And if you don't work, that's the problem. It's not that you're dumb or you're bad. You're just not working. Now that a kid can deal with, that doesn't generate anxiety. That actually motivates them. Okay, I can work hard. But when you tell them you are so smart, that sets them up for like, yeah, but what if I fail? What does that mean? Well, you're dumb and worthless. Do you see how that generates anxiety? Okay, so that's one little piece. Another piece is do not give your children too much. This is so important. If you spoil your children, you will take away their enterprising spirit. That's the best way to kill enterprisers, is to give them too much. Let them feel that longing, and that's what the greatest generation did. Give praise sparingly. If we praise our children too much, that actually creates anxiety too. Isn't that interesting? Because when we praise them, we're in the act of judging them. Oh man, that was really good. And then they're going, what happens if it's not really good, right? So it's better to say, and I do this clinically all the time, and I tell parents all the time, stop praising your kids so much, because it actually makes them feel like that they have to have your praise to feel okay. They become praise junkies. They have to have their fix, not to feel high anymore, but just to feel okay. And then when they go out in the world, and the world is not constantly saying, oh my gosh, you're so wonderful, they feel like something's wrong, right? How come people don't love me all the time like my mommy, okay? So cut back on your praise and instead express faith that, you know what, I think you can do that. I'm pretty sure you can do that. You work hard and I'll bet it'll happen, okay? The other thing you want to teach them is to be able to give props to themselves. It's called self-validation. So one of the ways, instead of just backing off and stop giving them praise, you start saying, hey, you know what, I'll bet you felt really proud of yourself when you did that. How did you feel? And you help them start generating, yeah, how did I feel? So it's an internal validation instead of hoping that outside I'm going to have people give me props and validations and likes on Facebook, right? So you teach them to look inside. I'll bet that, and you can prime them a little bit. Man, I'll bet you felt really smart when you did that. I bet you felt really accomplished when you did that. Is that kind of how you felt? You kind of help them develop that skill set. And they go, yeah. And then pretty soon they walk up to you and go, man. They'll say, I killed it. I did such a good job in there. You're like, yep, I didn't have to tell you that. And so that's that kind of resiliency. That's one way to generate resiliency, is help them understand how to self-validate. Also, for gifts, don't give them things that waste time and create indolence. Give children things and resources like lessons and materials that inspire the development of their talents and their ability to be contributors, to earn resources, wages, funds, and capital. So don't give your child a toy as much as you say, I'm going to give you some boots so that you can ride horses better. Or better yet, I'm going to give you a way to earn those boots, right? So you start small things. But think in terms of what could I, if it's for birthdays or Christmas, what could I do to give them things that actually help them become more productive? Hey, I'm going to give you some lessons. You've always wanted to know how to paraglide or whatever. I'm going to give you some lessons. Or can you see that kind of thing? Okay, so that's it. I'm finished. All I can tell you is it really can work, and it really can change your family culture. It can give your children ways that they can have educational choices that they hadn't before. So don't get boxed into public school or homeschooling. They can probably go to private school because they can earn it themselves. Okay? All right, thanks.